is an introduction to After Effects, and for today we're going to start by creating a sunrise and a sunset. I have already done so in this project. If I hit play, you'll see that my sun rises, it starts to change color, it's up high in the sky, and then it starts to change color as well as the sky, and it comes back down. And if you notice in After Effects, I have 3 layers: a grass layer, which is this layer, a sun layer, which is here in the middle, and I have a sky layer. And we're going to create those today. The first thing I need you to do is to launch After Effects, and you're going to start a new project. And I want you to click New Composition. And you can call this Sunrise, and I'm going to call it Sunrise 2 because I already have one called Sunrise. If the preset is active here for 1080 29.97, that's what we usually work in, 1920 by 1080 pixels. We'll say OK. And now we're going to get familiar with some of our tools. This is our timeline. This area is our canvas. Up at the top is where we have our tools. Some of these tools will be familiar to you. Some of them may be new. Up at the top, where you may have a rectangle, I have an ellipse right now, but if you click and hold that down, it will reveal several tools. We're going to choose the rectangle tool. And we're going to make our grass first. So in fill, I'm going to change that to a green color and choose whatever green you would like. And I want you to have stroke, no stroke at all. So to turn off the stroke, click where it says stroke and make sure none is selected. Now I'm going to draw a rectangle, and I'm going to keep it on the lower half of the screen. In the right-hand panel, you'll notice there's an Effects and Preset panel. Open it up, and if you type in warp, we're going to use Bezier warp. We're going to drag and drop that on our rectangle, and now we can manipulate our grass. We don't want it to be just a straight up rectangle. I'm going to create something that looks a little bit more like a hill. You have to drag these handles. These are Bezier handles. Those of you who have done graphic design are probably familiar with those. I'm satisfied with my grass looking like this. You can make it whatever shape you want. Now down here in the timeline, I want to make sure that I control click where it says shape 1, and I'm going to rename this shape grass so that I always know that this layer is my grass. And then I'm going to collapse that layer, and there's my grass. Now I'm going to create another rectangle by clicking the rectangle tool. And this time I'm going to make it a blue color because this is going to become my sky. And I'm going to draw another rectangle. And if you notice that it's covering part of my grass, that's because down in the timeline, this blue layer is above the grass layer. So if I drag the grass layer above that shape, it is now falls behind. I want to rename that shape layer, and I'm going to call it sky. Now I have grass and I have a sky. Now I want to create my sun. So I go up to my rectangle tool. This time I'm going to choose ellipse, and I'm going to change the fill color to oops, I'm going to undo that, cancel. I had my layer selected and that's why it changed color. Make sure you click off of the sky, choose the ellipse tool, change the fill color. And now I'm going to draw a circle, and that's going to be my sun. Now, collapse that layer. Let's rename that layer sun. Now we're going to use the position keyframe to make the sun move through the sky. So if I click on my sun layer and I hit P on my keyboard for position, it will reveal the position keyframes. I activate the stopwatch just like we do in Premiere Pro and initiate my first keyframe. Now I want to make sure that I'm on the arrow tool, my selection tool, and I'm going to move my sun below the horizon. Then I move ahead on the timeline, and now I can change the position of my sun, move ahead, change the position, move ahead. I'm going to make it high in the sky and continue. And I move ahead and I continue. And I'm going to make my entire animation about 12 seconds. Now, if I drag my work area here to be shorter, it will loop what I've played, what I've created. So my sun comes up, it gets high in the sky, and then it comes down. Now, my problem right now is that my sun is positioned in the top layer. And I want to move my sun so it's in between the grass and the sky. And now it will look like your sun is coming from behind the horizon, coming up, and then eventually it will go down in the horizon. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to change the color of the sun, because I know when the sun comes up, it's not bright yellow. It's oftentimes maybe a pinkish color. So I'm going to reveal the properties of that layer, the sun layer. And under contents and ellipse, I now have fill. And what I want to do is take the fill and reveal it. And I'm going to choose color, and I'm going to initiate a keyframe, and I'm going to say at the beginning, let's make this sun be maybe I'm going to come up to this area, even up here. I'm going to make it more of a pinkish color. And then when it starts to come up, it's going to get more orangey. So I'm going to change the color to more orangey. And then it's going to come up some more. And at this point, I want it to be more of a yellow. And then it's going to stay that yellow color for some time. So I'm going to hit just the keyframe, add another keyframe to keep it constantly yellow. And then as it's coming down, I want to change the color to more of that pinkish red, more of a reddish color. And as it comes all the way down, I'm going to make it even darker. And now if I play that through, my sun rises and it's changing color. And even though we only have 2, 4, 6 keyframes, it's changing between those colors between each keyframe. Now, as my sun changes color, my sky also changes color, or should change color. So I'm going to click on the arrow to collapse that layer. And down where it says sky, I'm going to click on the arrow to reveal that layer. And I'm going to go to my rectangle, and under fill, here is where my color is. I'm going to initiate, turn on keyframes, and when it's nighttime, the sky is darker. When the sun starts to come up, it gets lighter. And so I'm going to do the same thing that I did with my sun, but this time I'm doing it with the sky. And during the day, it's kind of staying that bright color. So I just want it to stay this color. So I'm going to initiate another keyframe to stay constant between these two keyframes. Stay constant. And then as it's coming down, I want my sky to get a little darker. And then in the end, I want it to be quite dark. And now, what I have is the sun coming up, changing color, my sky is changing color, and the sun is setting. At this point, I want to hit Command S to save. And now I want to make sure I save it in the right location, and you want to save it in your folder on the desktop, and we're just going to call this project Sunrise. And we're going to hit save. And we're going to keep building. This was part 1, and we're going to add other elements to our sunrise animation.